Release the Kraken!
Greetings, fellow game designers. Ron here at Lame Duck Studios, and in this one we are going to work on our inventory system. So we're going to get our inventory set up, and yeah. So in the last one, we had this where we could place blocks, and that's cool. We have these dynamically created, and we can destroy them, but we don't really have an inventory. So we need to have a place to go. So before we can even put them into the inventory, we have to first construct it. And there's a few pieces that go into making it. This is going to be broken down into a few different videos. So over the next few videos, we'll put this together. Try to keep it as short and simple as possible. First thing we want, of course, is just make sure, if you have not yet done it, down here in your textures, make sure that your icons have been uploaded or imported, and then the backgrounds for your inventory. You can see that I am missing my inventory backgrounds. I'm going to need those. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get those real quick. So in my not Minecraft folder, I'm going to grab the background PNGs. So I have the slot, make sure it's the PNG file. There's that one. And then we have this one. Yes. And drag those in. Okay, now start making our various components. So first thing right off the bat will be the widgets that go into these. So I'm going to go down to my blueprints folder here. Let's make a new folder. Call this widgets. And then inside this widgets folder, we're going to need a few different pieces. The first one is going to be the inventory itself, and then we'll need the slot and a draggable icon as well, because we want to be able to drag and drop stuff. So it's just handy to have one. So right click, go down to user interface, and then come over to widget blueprint. I'm going to name this one inventory. And then I'm going to do that again. I'm going to make the slot. And then let's go ahead and make the drag slot as well. So I'm going to say drag slot. Let's open up the inventory. So right off the bat, we have our canvas panel. And we just want to add a background for this. So I'm going to go down to image. Let's drag this in. Let's name this image background. Go ahead and set this to the center. And I will set the alignment to 0.5 and 0.5. Position, we can do 0, 0. And that's going to set it right smack dab in the middle for us. And then I come down to the brush under appearance here, and then load in the inventory background. So I'll say inventory background. And you see we load it in, and it's really tiny. Just go ahead and hit this size to content button, and that'll size it up for you. Okay, so we have our inventory background, and we want to add in places for our slots to go, because when we start adding this together, we're going to have the inventory section and, of course, the hotbar or the belt of the inventory. So we're going to have those in here as well. Okay, so go ahead and right-click on your background, go down to Wrap With, and let's go ahead and wrap this with an overlay. So what the overlay is going to let us do is it'll allow us to have two items kind of stacked on top of each other in the same screen space. It's going to be very useful for these the actual slots that are going to go into here. Okay, next let's go ahead and grab a vertical box. Vertical box. Drop that in to our overlay. It's going to be down here at the bottom. Our background is going to be the thing that's first. Then we have our vertical box. And then our vertical box is just going to be center. So let's go ahead and set it to center. And then we want it to expand vertically. So go ahead and hit fill vertical. That looks good. Inside the vertical box, we're going to have a couple things. So let's go ahead and clear this. Let's do the grid. Now it's up to you. You can pick a uniform grid or a grid panel. I'm going to go with a grid panel just because it allows me to have a more dynamic arrangement. I don't have to worry about all of the blocks being the exact same size, which is fine, because you'll know in Minecraft you have a block for crafting, and you have a slot for other pieces that are not always the same uniform dimension. So if you want everything to be perfectly square, go with uniform. If you want to have a little more freedom, go with the grid panel. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and drag that in onto the vertical box. Grab my grid panel. Let's go ahead and name this. This will be the inventory grid. And this can be set to fill, that's fine. And then for the, and then you can see this is kind of hiding way up here in the top. We want this to be down here. So to push this down, the easiest way to do that, and there's actually a couple ways to do that. So if I grab the inventory grid here, and I scroll all the way down to transform, you can set a transform offset position. So if I drag this Y position, I can move this on the screen relative to where I want it to be. You are perfectly welcome to do that. I prefer using spacers, but you can offset positions here if you need to. I'm going to set that to 0. I'm going to come up to my search box. I'm going to do a spacer. I'm going to put that just behind the inventory. Oops. There we go. And I'll push that down 300 units. And then I'll come down to my inventory. And we're going to use this same kind of inventory setup for like boxes and that sort of thing. So it'll be handy to add in a scroll box. Right click here and wrap with a scroll box. And what the scroll box will do is as the inventory expands out, it'll add a slide bar and you can scroll up and down or left and right depending on your setup. I'm going to go ahead and grab my scroll box. You can see that we have the scroll type, style, and bar style. We also have orientation. I'm going to go ahead and keep this as vertical. And I do want the scroll bar to be visible. Vertical, visible, and when scrolling is possible. So if the box is ever bigger than its container, it'll be scrollable. And that looks fine. I'll leave that as it is. Let me go back up and grab my spacer. It looks like my spacer didn't actually push things down. So, oh, I see what I did. I set the pivot of the spacer to 300. I'm going to go ahead and push that back to default, which is 0.5. The spacer size here is what I wanted, so 300 on the Y. There we go. That makes sense. Got that. Cool. And then I'm going to add another grid here, so I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my current inventory. I'll go ahead and duplicate. I'll name the second one. This could be your hotbar, it could be a belt, whatever you want to call it. And Minecraft, I think they call it a hotbar. So I'll call this a hotbar grid. And then I'm going to push this down with a spacer. So I'm going to grab another spacer, drop that in between. And this time, make sure I'm in size this time. And we're going to do about 30. Let's try 40. A little bit better. Okay. Compile that, save that. Now at the moment there's nothing inside of our grid, but we're going to load stuff in dynamically. That way we can resize this whenever we want. So I think we're good in here. We'll save. And now let's jump over to our inventory slot here. So get the slot. For the slot we're going to do a little bit differently. We don't need the canvas panel, so go ahead and delete that. We will want to have an overlay, so we'll grab the overlay. Drag that in. Inside of our overlay, we're going to have 4 images. So the first one, let's do image. This is going to be the background. And we'll have this expand and fill horizontal and vertical. Good. You can see how this is ginormous on the screen. Let's go ahead and change this from full screen to desired. And we'll have this tiny little box. Now this box is a little bit smaller than I really want it, so to get a specific size, I'm going to wrap our overlay with a size box. So go ahead and grab the overlay, and right click the wrap with, and we'll do a size box. Grab the size box, and we'll hit the override width and height, and we can specify 100 by 100, which is what we had sized our inventory slot to be in our previous video. So let's go ahead and get those in. So we have this, we have background. For the background, I'll go ahead and load in the inventory slot background. So slot, there we go. Next up, we're going to drag a new image, or you can just duplicate the same one. There's no harm in that. expand that. This is going to be the item. And for the moment, I'm just going to place in a block. So let's do grab dirt, I guess. I'm going to grab the dirt icon. So that's what the block is going to look like in the inventory. And then the next one, just drag in the image. This is going to be the selected highlight. So selected highlight. Expand that out. This one. I don't have a brush for it. If you want to create like a border image or something, you're welcome to. For now, I'm just going to create a tint. So let's go down to the color and opacity. I'm going to set this to 0.25. And then let's grab a color. I'll grab like a green. So whenever we're hovering over it or whatever not. And then this one's optional. If you want to have an indicator from where if you're to drag a box, if you want to know where your previously selected area was, then you will do this next one, which is oh, come here, you. I'll just duplicate. There we go. This is going to be the drag highlight. So drag highlight. And I'll change this one out to a different color. Cool. Drag highlight, selected highlight. And let's do one more highlight. Let's drag. Do a duplicate. Put this one on top here. This one's going to be the hovered highlight. So whenever the mouse hovers, we'll have this one. Whenever we click on it, we will have the green one. And whenever we do a drag, we'll have this red one. Go ahead and compile and save that. Let's jump into the graph here. Let's see, I don't need the event tick. I think we're good to get rid of that. We don't need the pre-construct. We will have some variables though. So the first variable is going to be the slot contents. And in the drop down here, I'm going to make this the block structure. So block, structure, object reference. Let's go ahead and poke the eyeball on that. We'll make that public. And we also want this to be exposed on spawn. So whenever we create this object, we can pass in the contents for the slot that it needs. The next thing we want is an empty version of our slot contents. We don't need the whole thing. So let's go ahead and just open that up. We'll call this one empty slot. And then we could use the block structure. There's no real harm in doing that. But it's going to be simpler for us if we just make this a slate brush. So slate brush. And the slate system is what is used for drawing our widget system. So just grab that and grab the object reference for that. So whenever we want to clear everything out, we can just pass that in. We can compile that. Next thing on our list will be, we'll call this one is clicked. We'll change this to a Boolean. We don't need that one to be public. That one's fine. And then lastly on here, I noticed we did not give ourselves a stackable item option. So if we come back to our design view, let's go ahead and drop in some text. So text. Drop this in. I'm going to put the text in as 0. And then I'm going to move this 0 wherever I want it to be. So this is one of those cases where if I come down to the bottom here, now we have our justified. I can justify this, however, right? Center, justified. But then if I want it to be here, there, or there, then I want this to be governed by its transform. So if I come down, we have our transform. And now if I want this to be on this side, I can take my X transform and kind of drag that till I'm happy with wherever it's at. If you want it to be in the bottom corner, you can do that, the bottom corner, and so on and so forth. So wherever you want to put this, this is going to indicate how many of these we have in a single slot if there's more than one. So in my case, I like the default for this one, for 80 on the X. I'm going to name this. This is going to be the item count. Make sure that this is set to a variable. Text is usually not a variable by default, so just make sure that it is. We'll compile, save that. Jump back over into our graph here. And yeah, so we have all those. And then lastly for this particular video, because we are pushing up to 30 minutes here, is we're going to do our drag slot, which won't take too long. Really, our drag slot is going to be very similar to our previous slot. We're just going to go ahead and remove the canvas panel. And we want a size box. We're going to size this to the same 100 by 100. And we're going to want an image. Let's set the screen here to desired. And then the image here, this is going to be the item. Compile that. If you want to have a temporary item here, you're welcome to. I'm going to leave it blank. And come over to the graph here. I don't need the pre-construct or the tick. For variables, we are going to want the slot contents. So this is going to be the drag contents. It's going to be our block structure. And we do want this to be exposed on spawn. So open that up and expose it on spawn. We also want the previous slot. So we want to know the slot that it came from. So let's go ahead and make a variable. This is going to be the previous slot. And this is going to be our inventory slot. So if I type in slot, come down, you can see we have a widget named slot. Go ahead and add that. And that will also be exposed on spawn. And this one's pretty quick. We're just going to take our item, drag that in, do a get. We'll do a set brush. Where are you? Let's expand the brush. And then all we want to do here is pass in the drag contents. So drag contents, split that. And we're going to pass in the image, so the icon right here. And then everything else can be default. Let's go ahead and minimize that here. So now we have our 3 widgets set up. Now we still have some code to go into the inventory and the slot. We just did this one because it was real quick. And the next one will set up these as well as our inventory component. So stay tuned, and I shall see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for checking out the channel. Misty and I both thank you. If you enjoyed that video you just watched, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, I'm getting into NFTs. Those are big these days. I was thinking about creating my own coin, but we'll get into that at a later date. But NFTs are pretty hot right now. I'm converting my artwork to NFTs. You can see my Rarible page right here. Well, I got 4 items, but I'm adding one as they go. They're not cheap to make, so gotta make them as they go. If you want to support the channel other ways, of course, there's Lambda Studios merch, which you can see right here on my Teespring store, as well as Amazon. Speaking of Amazon, I have my books up there under Bruce RF, which is my pen name. Life and Times of Donna Martin, as well as The Guardian's Path of Ascension. You can flip through those and see the reviews, and grab a copy, read it, tell me what you think. It helps me out as an author. It also helps me out as, everything goes back into the stuff that I'm doing. So more content for you. If you want to keep up with me throughout the day, or just kind of see what's going on in life, hit me up on Twitter under BruceRF1. Again, that is my pen name. If you want to see what's going on my blog, ronflowersjr.me, you can see what I'm writing about, what else is going on in life, difficulties that I have with my projects that I'm working on. A lot of my devlog stuff kind of goes there before it comes here, so it's another way of kind of getting into that. I do also have a Patreon where I release content early if you want to get access to things ahead of time, because most of the stuff I produce, I do things on Sundays and I post on Wednesdays most often, but it goes to Patreon first, so it's kind of there usually a week or so ahead of time, and then it has a release schedule. So if you want to see things early, go there. Let's see, what else? What else is going on? You can also follow me on Facebook under, you can do the Lame Duck Studios Facebook or the Bruce RF Facebook. Both of those are available. And a lot of these links are down in the description, so if you want to just like hit those up and just click on them and follow them through, that's another way of getting there. Also, we are at 1,300 subscribers. Woo! We're this close to 10,000. But small milestones first. Let's get to 2,000 subscribers, and then we will continue our road building toward that 10,000 milestone. That is going to be pretty awesome for this channel, my humble channel. So yeah, that's all I have for you on this outro. It's a bit of a long one, but a lot of stuff going on. Anyways, stay tuned, and I shall see you next time.